maybe make Dante stand behind the camera to make sure.
You gotta come check in.
Again?
Dante, you gotta come back in 5 minutes and make sure it's still recording.
Alright, I'll put a time.
Just don't slam the door.
Slam it?
That's funny.
Alright, y'all guys ready?
I'm trying to go.
I think Bronny gonna be out of college, though.
I think he's gonna thrive in college.
Yeah, me too.
Like in that system, in that.
If he goes too big.
If he goes to the wrong school, I think Ohio State is the perfect fit for him.
Yeah, because they're not.
I think
not
Duke
big,
is
big.
too exposed, bro.
Duke is
That
too
means he can just fine-tune his game until tournament time, and he gotta have a big tournament.
Yep.
If we go to Duke, it's national exposure week after week.
Yeah.
And if he start playing bad in the beginning
That's
against a team
ugly.
that's supposed to be team they could beat up
Yep.
on,
Yep.
niggas gonna be in the media, and that's gonna fuck up his whole career.
Him doing LeBron and say he's hurt
Are y'all ready?
and cash out for the year.
I'd be smart on LeBron. I mean, Dedrick told Coach K.
What's Duke coach?
I got some editing ideas too.
Right.
Like,
I don't have time for that shit.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't.
y'all ready?
Yeah.
Mark, you wanna do your?
Oh, yeah. I bet you can't do the
With the pencils.
the clip speed. Dude, grinding. Can you
Do
grind it?
not do it on here.
Okay.
This table is terrible.
Oh my God! All right, here we go. All right, here we go.
I need 2 pencils, that's why.
Okay.
You ready? Mm-hmm. What's up, podcast family? You are now tuned in to your favorite podcast, The Layup Line. I'm one of your captains, or I should say co-captains, AJ. I'm here with my brothers and my fellow co-captain, Mark.
What's up?
And we have 2 special guests today, returning guests today. We have Elijah. What's up, Elijah?
What's going on?
And Brandon. What's good?
What's good? What's good?
We have a really good show today. Talking about something near and dear to our hearts. But before we start that, we have another dunk of the day that happened.
Which one?
The one that happened last week.
Oh yeah. The game.
Dunk of the day. We're on a roll, right?
Yeah.
Philadelphia lost to the Commanders as predicted in Dunk of the Day in episode 5 by Elijah and Fareed.
Yep.
We're on a roll, man.
We're fine.
We're fine.
FanDuel.
FanDuel's coming.
Yeah, FanDuel's
Sponsorship is coming. Dual fan. Dual fan is coming. All right. So today, let's dig into it. And the topic today, or the layup today, is going to be AAU, right? Now, the reason why that's near and dear to us is because some of us, most of us, are part of AAU organizations, but all of us have played AAU at some point in time. And I think we have some similar feelings on AAU and some differences. But let's kick it off with just the general basics for people who are not familiar with AAU. AAU is Amateur Athletic Union, and it's specifically an organization that is for youth athletics. And I think they do more than just basketball, right? But it's for youth athletics. And traditionally, as I was raised in AAU, it was basically for talented players who wanted to come together to play against other talented players in a specific region or area. Since then, and I'm dating myself, but since then, it has blossomed, ballooned, and changed the landscape. So how do you guys feel about AAU overall, without getting too deep? Brandon, how do you feel about it?
It's definitely oversaturated in all aspects, in all levels. Middle school, high school. There's a team in every neighborhood. There's a church with a team. There's a dad who has 2 kids and he has 8 other friends and like $2 grand is gonna say, listen, we're gonna make this neighborhood team, give kids an opportunity to play. They wouldn't make, a big organizations team, so I'm gonna give them a chance and, throw them into a local tournament. So,
Now, before I kick it over to you, Elijah, I want to be clear about AAU as a whole. AAU is like, it's a name. It's a brand, like Q-Tip. It doesn't mean it's not a governing body over youth basketball. So these programs that call themselves AAU are not necessarily AAU, right? They just say they're AAU essentially because they're playing travel basketball or non-school related basketball. So in my opinion, there's 3 levels to AAU, right? You have your neighborhood basketball, which Brandon talked about, and that's your non-commitment, not too serious basketball. Someone's father, like you said, gets a group of kids and they go play and they have fun, no problem. Then you have the mid-tier, which to me is the most oversaturated, where it's, the kids who kind of want to play serious basketball. They may or may not be the best around, but they're serious about wanting to play basketball. And then you have your tier 3, which is the top of AAU, which is your EYBL, your Under Armour circuit, Adidas circuit, which, those guys are pretty much, that's their life, right? Those guys are the guys you typically see that go on to do big basketball things. So AAU is just a moniker. It's not necessarily saying that just because you're on a team outside of school, you're on the AAU team. You could just be on a local basketball team. But what's your thoughts, Elijah?
I think having the 3 levels that you talked about is very important. I think it gives an outlet for kids to feel like they're a part of something. Like the fact that there is elite basketball, right? So if you're one of those bottom dad teams, you may be playing in your local league. If you play against that elite level, you're going to get washed. And if that's what your goal is, right, to get better, that actually might be helpful for you. Because if you're not going to get on one of those teams, but you play against that level of competition, it might make you want to work harder as a kid too. So I do think there's pros and cons, right? Like, so there's a bunch of teams in the area that might be a con, but then having where you can put together better players, right, from an area. They're all spread out. I think sometimes that hurts the culture of basketball, but then at the same time, I think it gives like more of an opportunity for kids. Like somebody might be a late bloomer, so if they're on one team and they get to develop their game as the star on that team, they might be able to play at the next level come a year later. It might be a big difference, and that experience might have made them be able to actually do that versus if they didn't have an opportunity to play.
110%. I think we're in agreement with that. Mark, what you feel like?
I think initially the concept of AAU basketball is a great one. I think what has made it to where you guys are speaking about, the negative parts about it, has been the almighty dollar. Once money gets involved in most things that are genuine and pure, intentions change, and purpose change and motive changes a lot. And I think that's where we are right now within the AAU circuit. Like you mentioned, the middle tier is where there's a lot of saturation. There's saturation on the highest level also, sneaker deals and stuff like that, the sneaker companies or whatever. And they're trying to, they have it primarily to try to identify the next one.
Yeah.
The next one in an effort to have them sign to their sneaker company or brand so they can expand their brand to a different market, especially with the NIL stuff going on too. But the market underneath is where they, the phrase, the money's in bad basketball is pervasive on that level, and that's where it is. And I think that's where the saturation has been immense. Yeah.
And then to add on to what you said about even with the finding the next one, I think different from your time, and even a little bit like probably my age is probably would be the start of it with Who Mixtapes. I think social media has plays a big part in ruining AAU and basketball, right? Because it's like you don't know if a kid is actually good because if you see a bunch of highlights,
all you see is the main layups.
You know what I'm saying? The Casey Hills, the top 5 Who Mixtapes, and then they get to this next level of basketball, and it don't look like that.
Before we end, I know we have to go in a minute. I think in my era, I'm a little older than everybody here. We were from the era where you had to be really good to play on travel basketball. Whether it was you had to grassroots basketball. In the New York area, we've heard Riverside Gauchos, those type of level programs and stuff like that. We also had Gary Charles' program back in there, all those different programs. If you weren't good enough, you didn't travel. You played locally. So then
but it wasn't AAU, and that's why I think the title is important.
So I'm gonna use grassroots. I'm gonna say grassroots. So it's grassroots.
But there wasn't. Where I come from, and I'm sorry to cut you off. We had PAL, right? And PAL was like the thing you did before AAU started, because there was seasons back in the day. But once you got into AAU, that was it. There was no other options. And I agree that there should be other resources and other alternatives to AAU for guys who are not thinking long-term basketball. But then I think it gets conflicted because everything is supposed to be AAU, right? You're not AAU.
Right.
You're a little Johnny who just wants to have fun with your friends. That's fine. Right. But then you're saying you play AAU, but then you have someone who's going to Kentucky next year, you say you play AAU, and people don't know the difference.
Correct.
It should be, maybe it should be called Grassroots, fine, and then we have AAU. There should be a separation. So at least from the person who doesn't know better can see it and say, okay, there's a significant difference between what you're trying to do and what he's trying to do.
Right, that's a good point, because like, I don't know who the number one player is right now. Let's say it's LeBron James, whatever.
Yes.
Bronny James. The kid that goes to school in South Dakota can legitimately say he plays AAU just like Bronny James. But there's a complete different level of AAU.
Yeah.
So that's those grassroots. So back to what I was saying. So if you didn't make those teams in grassroots basketball, you didn't necessarily travel. You had to go work on your fucking game.
You had to work on your game.
You had to
You
work
didn't play on the team.
And so your goal was to get on that team.
Yeah.
And if you worked your ass off to get on that team, that's when, so we didn't have that middle level and that lower level. It was the park.
Yes.
So you had to go to the park or get your ass beat or whatever the case may be. But now, because of the world we live in now, everyone has to have something to make the feel.
You
can't cut people. So if you didn't make the team, oh, we're going to create a team for you of the cuts.
Yes.
You know, these are called the cuts. And then in the cuts now, you play in a tournament against other cuts. And in all actuality, it's great, and everybody should be involved, and I understand it, but like you said, it goes back to the point we were saying. That's not the same level of AAU basketball.
not at all.
And it creates a level of entitlement sometimes. That's why I think it can ruin, because if you feel
Well,
like
that's good.
you got cut, but you really, sometimes kids should be cut, but then by making another team for them, they don't even work harder. Because they don't realize that they're
So in the real world,
they'll make a team.
right, so
that's where I think it can hurt.
So in the real world, when they get fired, they feel entitled to feel like they shouldn't be fired. They're gonna do, they get into.
So I'll give you a scenario. So
upset.
around here, without saying a specific school
I can.
or anything, there was a coach, and I'm giving you third-party information. There's a coach who coached at a local high school for 30 plus years, right? And this year, I believe, or last year, one of these recently, student tried out, student got cut, student's mother was on the board, the mother, bitched to whoever, coach got fired. So when you talk about getting cut should be a part of every program. Players need to understand, even in the AAU program I run, we make all of our players returning, whether you've been on the team for 10 years or 2 months, you got to try out. You got to perform, right? And a lot of programs just run concurrently. They don't even have tryouts, which is fine. But at the end of the day, these players, they know that they're already in a program. They're not trying out. There's no motive to do better. There's no motive to get better. It's like, hey, I'm on the team. It's no problem. At the very least in our program, we try our best to keep the players who are serious around. But at the same time, you still got to perform. We've got players who played on perhaps our best team who didn't play on our best team the next year. We have players who played on our not best team, play on the best team next year. So I think that's the motivation. I don't think, and I think, like you said, Elijah, there's a space for everybody, or should be a space, but at the same time, that space needs to still have some kind of guidelines, right? You still should be like, hey, I got to go perform, right? You can't, because that's not the real world. When you go to high school trials and you walk around with 60 kids, somebody got to get cut.
Yeah. We only have 15 uniforms. All right, so we're gonna close with this though. The greatest player, the greatest player of all time did not play on the varsity as a freshman. Michael Jordan did not play.
I think it's not on me.
No, you suck.
All the time.
Michael Jordan did not play varsity basketball as a freshman nor a sophomore. He didn't join until he was a junior because he didn't make the varsity level.
There's a lot of, on a whole different, there's a lot of really, really good players that didn't even play basketball till their junior year.
Correct.
Senior year. So, you don't have to play basketball. In fact, I would want to say that if you pick up the sport late and learn it the right way, you're probably better off.
I agree.
100%.
There's no expectation.
Yeah,
You're just going
no
to work
expectations,
hard.
but you're learning it in a condensed way and not like, over the span of 10, 12 years playing bad basketball.
Here's a question for you before we leave. Has the best 7th grader ever become the best 12th grader in the country?
We got to do some research on that.
Yeah,
But I seen a lot of
I wanna know
Instagram
one.
kids over
Who's
the
that?
span of 3-4 years.
Kenny Anderson. But that's my era. So he was the best 7th grader, he was 8th grader, 9th grader, 10th
But
grader.
there wasn't social media.
LeBron was not the best in
He was the best freshman.
freshman. But then he became, when he beat Lenny Cook and all that, then he became that motherfucker. But
I got one.
yep.